Hello world, I'm Robin Catling and this is Write On. Join me in my author journey as I delve into the craft of writing, bringing you tools, tips and lessons learned the hard way so you don't have to. The Character Growth Worksheet. If you're stuck developing a character for your story, look no further than Jeff Elkins' Character Growth Worksheet. A favourite writing coach, Jeff the Dialogue Doctor, offers excellent free tools, but this one featured as a giveaway in a presentation and isn't on his website. There are many character profile questionnaires containing a lot of obvious, trivial and unhelpful questions intended to help authors develop characters for stories. Elkins' Character Growth Worksheet is the best I've found so far for useful creative thinking. I used it to validate my protagonist for the November Challenge project. It's a detailed exercise that provided a lot of valuable material to fully develop the character. Worksheet topics. Essentially, Elkins' worksheet is a list of questions, so you don't need a fancy formatted document. Elkins breaks those questions down into backstory, personality, voice, emotional range, growth arc, starting state, end state, winning and losing, scenes needed for growth, the consequences of failure, and influences of other characters. Start here. Describe your character's backstory. What important events happened in your character's life before your story begins that shaped your character? Who were the important people in your character's life before the story begins? At the start of the story, how does your character perceive themselves in relation to their society or culture? Lastly, how is your character perceived by that society or culture? Taking into account your character's backstory, describe your character's personality. How would other characters describe your character? Then, how would your character describe themselves? Describe your character's personality with only 3 adjectives. Finally, pick the adjective that best defines your character. Core voice. Based on the adjectives you selected above, describe your character's core voice. Use the 5 components of a character voice below to describe how those adjectives sound on the page. Topics. What does the character choose to discuss? Vocabulary. What types of words does the character use? Body language. What is the character's typical body language? Utterance construction. What is the construction of the character's vocalizations? Long sentences, short sentences, periods, question marks, commas. Participation in a segment. How often and when does your character speak in a conversation of 3 or more characters? Think about the 3 biggest emotions your character will feel during your story. For each emotion, think about how the components of the character voice will change. Try to only change 2 or 3 components for each emotional swing. Hint: the bigger the emotion, the bigger the change in the component should be. Next, determine your character's growth arc. Now that we understand your character's voice, let's think about how your character is going to change over the course of the story. Describe the primary conflict of the story. What happens? What would it look like if your character wins at the end of the story? Then, what would it look like if your character loses at the end of the story? What barriers or obstacles does your character need to overcome in order to win at the end of the story? What about your character's behavior or self-understanding is keeping your character from winning? How does your character need to change their behavior or self-understanding in order to win? What is your character like at the start of the story before they have changed? New character voice. As they grow and change, what do they sound like? Is their voice the same as the core voice you described above, or somehow different? What is your character like at the end of the story after they have changed? Pick 2 or 3 of the 5 components of your character's voice to change. How can you make changes in those components to show your reader your character is different? Scenes you need for growth. Now that you know what your character is like at the beginning of the story and what your character is like at the end of the story, think about the moments your character needs to go through in order to undergo that change. List a few ways your character will fail to change. Times your character loses. Which characters or events in the story influence your lead character to fail? What is the consequence of each failure? For each way you list, write down how your character feels about the failure. Describe a few moments when your character will experience positive change. Those are the times your character wins. Which other characters or events in the story influence your character to change in positive ways? What are the consequences of each success? How does your character feel when they experience the change? Proof positive. I ran through this worksheet partway through the first draft of The Sixth Messenger, and it helped develop the character of Erin Parr. Elkins' method asks relevant and insightful questions without any of the trivia you find in similar tools. That's all for this time. Thanks for stopping by. You can like and subscribe to the channel or go to robincatling.info to check out the blog.